Likkutei Torah Bamidbar or Shavuot, page Lamed Gimel, top of the second column. Okay, now last thing that the Rabbi is explaining is that the world compared to Hashem is nothing, but the way Elokus comes into the world is through two things, Torah and mitzvahs. So he says mitzvahs are called the limbs of Hashem. What is the purpose of a limb? That it's the vessel for the power of the neshama to come into. So every mitzvah is a vessel for a particular revelation of a gili of Elokus to come into the world. But he says, Torah though is like, that's mitzvahs. Torah is likened to blood. What is the function of blood? Blood brings the koyach from the neshama into the limb. Because if there's no blood going from the neshama to the limb, then that limb doesn't function as a limb. So he says that's the level of Torah. And that's where we're in the middle of now. So he says, we'll start the third line. The Fishamit, second column of Yud Gimel. Fishamit, the same as Gala, some shachas rotzen loyerein to baruch hu beize bechina. Because what is a mitzvah like a limb that brings down the power of the neshama into the particular part? Kamei al derech Moshe lase sukkah. To make a sukkah, which is Raz Galus, Ratzon al Yom Berchina Sal Yain Madrego Yaina. Me'ede Sal Yainim. What is Sukkah? Sukkah is in fact the level of Makifim. So Sukkah is a level of a Keli to bring down great levels of Elokus. M'nei Shekach Ol B'Tzaynei. Because this, why does Sukkah bring down Elokus and not eating potato chips? Because make a Sukkah, this is what Hashem wanted. Hashem wanted that this particular mitzvah causes. What does Torah do? Torah teaches us the halachas of a sukkah. So in other words, the mitzvah of sukkah is the will of Hashem. This is the way I want this particular revelation of Elokus to come into the world. But in order to know what that sukkah is, to be able to bring down that gili Elokus, that's the level of Torah. It has to be Sayin now Zayin. Tvach, minimal size of a sukkah is 7 by 7. And the schach cannot be from something that gets tummy. So Torah teaches us how to create the sukkah that is the will of Hashem. Then Elokus can come into that level. Because if you make it wrong, then it's not a kosher sukkah. If it's not a kosher sukkah, you don't have that amshach of Elokus. Like a guy who sets up his house, yeah? This piece of furniture goes here, this piece of furniture goes there. Torah is like the owner of the world. To how to do the mitzvahs. So Torah says, this is how sukkah goes, and this is the way lulav goes, and this is the way shofar goes, and this is the way tefillin goes. So therefore mitzvahs are called the limbs of the king. The chayis that comes into the mitzvah is lachluch, is the moisture. Hamegadlam levad bechinas kriris. Masha'en kein Torah is likened to blood, which is adam. Aleph dam, shadam or nefesh. V'amamshech iker chayis v'ruach hachayim asher b'kirbay. And Torah is the one that brings down the life into the limb, meaning the blood into the limb. V'lei bechinas hagdola levad, not only for it to grow. Therefore, Torah in essence is above time and place. Mitzvahs, the Rabbi asked the question before, if mitzvahs are time and place, how could Torah, which is the manual for mitzvahs, be above time and place? You learn about Eilah, it's like you bring Eilah. So the Rabbi is explaining because the limbs, the mitzvahs, have to have a particular, the eye needs a particular shape and size and formation or whatever it's composed of. But the blood, that's the blood equal in all places. So the chayis that brings down Elokus into each particular mitzvah is Torah. So Torah is above all of that. Like the blood is not limited in the blood itself that this is the eye and the foot and the stomach and it. The blood is what brings down the chayes and the neshama. So therefore, Torah is above time and place. On the other hand, the mitzvahs are not above time and place. This is what it says in the pasuk. This is the Torah of a person. The mus kamada Adam. Which Adam are we referring to? The Adam that's on the throne, which is the Adam Elyon, which is similar to Hashem, which is Seviv Kolam L'mayla B'chinas Makom Izman. So therefore, really, Torah in a certain is mamish the opposite of always. Always it says Torah is Pnibi, Mamala, and mitzvahs are Seviv Levushim. Here, the Rabbi is explaining the reverse. That mitzvahs are limitation of time and place. And Torah is above time and place.
The marshal of blood being going all over the body to every limb, compared to how is check to Torah being above time and place?
What is the function of Torah? To bring down Elokus into every finite mitzvah.
Okay.
So that's Torah, which is like blood.
No, but how is that connected to time and place?
So because Torah is not limited, because it's not a mitzvah that has to be done in time and place. Torah is not limited in time and place. It's not a mitzvah. I mean, there is a mitzvah learning Torah, but it's a mitzvah are. By the way, there's an aspect in Torah that Torah is also a mitzvah like any other mitzvah. Look at my shekos v'nei mokim iti. Shalagabe achayes b'seichel nagdilim. Nasi kameyem v'ayul b'asar achan mamish. V'yesh b'mischalkes hevarim. Mitzvahs which are like limbs, therefore nisunim tachas azman v'mokim. Therefore they're under the jurisdiction of time and place. Aval Torah, which is not his galus amshachas ratzim bilvad. It's not only the revelation of Hashem's will. Rabchinis is galus and hogis ratzim kanal. It's a revelation of what the will of Hashem is. In other words, Torah tells us that there is a mitzvah called sukkah. How do we know there's a mitzvah called sukkah? Or tefillin or whatever. Torah says it's a mitzvah. Therefore, what is Torah? The will of Hashem that comes into the mitzvahs is called the will of all wills. Therefore, it says in Chazal, no wills, no desires of Hashem, i.e. mitzvahs, equal Torah. Because Torah is, number one, tells us what the will of Hashem is. Without Torah, we don't know what mitzvahs are. So Torah, Torah tells us, number one, what the mitzvah is. And secondly, Torah brings down, is the blood that brings down the Lukkos into the mitzvah. Every aspect of Torah is above time and place.
So how come the part of Shabbat they came down at the time of Rishonim, some of it came down at the time of Gemara, and they expanded it, and different generations brought it down differently? I know those generations needed it.
No, every generation has its time when that aspect of Torah is revealed. Most of the time based on what that generation needs. But then you have another issue. No, for instance, I think it's in Tzemach Tzedek. Why that earlier generations things were permissible, and then later chicken and milk biblically was allowed. That means for a long time people were eating chicken and milk. Then the Chachamim said it's forbidden. Yeah. Why? What happened? So it's very simple. Something which is allowed to eat is because we have the ability to elevate it. Something we can't elevate is also because it's bound, we can't elevate it. So earlier generations, when people were on a higher madrega level, So they were able to elevate chicken and milk. It was possible to elevate it. As generations went downward, spiraled downward, so then the Chachamim realized in this generation they can't elevate chicken and milk. So therefore it's forbidden.
So it's generation dependent.
But you have other mitzvahs. You have the 7 rabbinic mitzvahs, like Hanukkah, Purim, all those. In the time of Moshe Rabbeinu, they didn't celebrate Hanukkah or Purim, right? Those Yomim Tovim came into the world at a later time because the world needed that gilui of that unique Yom Tov at that time.
So it makes it adorable, it makes it connected to the time.
No.
The time of that generation.
It's above time that's now affecting the time.
How do you explain calamities for which we fast? The world needed that, and now we need to.
The world needed what? The fasting or the tragedy? Obviously, if Hashem made the tragedy happen at a certain time, yes?
Right.
That means the world needed it. Not chas v'sholem. Not chas v'sholem to say we sinned and that's why the Holocaust happened and the Rebbe would scream when people said such stupidities. Rebbe said, why Hashem did it? We don't know. But Hashem did it, so we needed it. The world needed the Holocaust. The world needed the Inquisition. The world needed why there what that's Abish's business.
Tough job being done.
It's a tough job being God, I know. No, like, okay.
It's above time, but it affects time.
Correct. Time made timeless.
Is that again?
Time made timeless.
A Jew that has nothing to do with the Torah does a mitzvah, is still connecting. He doesn't
Sure.
know anything about Torah.
Doesn't have to know. If somebody buys a lottery ticket, he doesn't know anything about a lottery. He sees everybody buying a lottery ticket. He buys a lottery ticket. He doesn't know anything about the lottery. And he wins the money. Because he didn't know how the lottery works, he doesn't get the money. He does. As long as you do it. If you do it, you go do it. We said many times, there are people in the world today that are born Jewish, died Jewish, and never even knew they were Jewish. It's not the pshat they knew they were Jewish, they just didn't bother keeping. There are people that, how many times you might bump into somebody in their 70s or 80s, and by the way, you're Jewish. They never knew, right? But there are people that we don't bump into. And there are people that are born Jewish, die Jewish, somewhere in the Midwest or Yopet. There's nobody there, no Jews there, they don't even know. They're born Jewish, die Jewish. Yeah? So now, a Jew that was born Jewish doesn't keep, you can blame him. You're Jewish, you should have learned about it. A guy that never knew they were Jewish, they were born Jewish, died Jewish, never even knew they were Jewish. So obviously you can't blame them, right? So why did the neshama come into the world? Obviously, they have a mission to accomplish. What the mission is, only God knows. Maybe they have to do a favor to somebody. Maybe they have to help somebody out. Maybe what they did had a tremendous impact on a lot of people. We don't know. But one thing is for sure. The guy doesn't know he's Jewish, born and died. That obviously Hashem knew that was going to, and yet Hashem sent down that neshama. So obviously the purpose of that particular neshama is not to do Torah mitzvahs. Obviously, because he doesn't know. He doesn't know he's Jewish. What? That's simple logic. It doesn't make sense, but there's simple logic. Otherwise, why would Hashem send down that neshama? Okay, Kitzer. What?
Don't argue.
don't argue, I accept it.
In simple language, did that neshama was sent down by Hashem? For what?
I don't know.
I'm asking, to keep Torah mitzvahs? Obviously not. The guy never knew he was Jewish. You can't blame a guy for not learning Torah mitzvahs. He's a guy.
Why did you send him Jewish? And
Why Hashem sent down? Because that neshama of a Jew, that chelek alakah mimal mamish, the mamish part of Hashem, had a mission to do in this world. And it wasn't necessarily Torah mitzvahs. You know, there's a famous story, the Baal Shem Tov, they didn't have kids, and the Baal Shem gave him a bracha, and the kid died when the kid was 2. And the Baal Shem told him a whole story about the special neshama that needed to be nursed from a Jewish woman. Right? Because of whatever. That's the purpose of that. The Baal Shem Tov told the parents the purpose of their kids' neshama. It wasn't to do Torah mitzvahs, because the kid died when they were 2.
There is no question there. The question is how to be.
You know, I was just talking to somebody the other day. They had a Nishtangedachte stillborn, yeah? Full-term stillborn, yeah? So they're asking, like, so obviously the answer is, you don't have to be a Ruach HaKodesh. Obviously, there was a certain neshama that need to be in the stomach of a Yiddish woman for 9 months. That was all it needed. Wasn't anybody did something wrong that they caused this stillborn. Hashem made a stillborn. Right? We're not talking negligent people. Okay. Hashem, the normal person, they gave birth to a stillborn. So what's the why? The answer is, for whatever reason, only Hashem knows, this particular neshama had no other function to complete itself but to be carried by a Jewish mother for 9 months. You don't have to be a rocket scientist to understand that.
The question is, how could a Jewish neshama live properly, not doing a single mitzvah?
First of all, they did a favor to somebody. Wasn't saying your name and hey ear?
Yeah.
For the Baal Shem Tov, for the Mordechai, name of the Baal Shem Tov, there's worth for neshama to come into the world 7 just to do one favor. Maybe their neshama came down to do somebody a favor.
That's not a mitzvah.
Hello, v'aftarecha kamecha. Is that klav gadol b'Torah? This is the whole Torah. Everything else is the coming. We mean. Okay. Inyan Bereshit b'shvil ha-Torah, Ramachivam demalka eis lakol chayfetz. Torah is blood. Choleis b'Torah sel kilo karev. Okay. Vinei tachlis inyan. So you have Torah and you have mitzvahs. So the Alter Rebbe explained before, that is the whole purpose of how we get elukus into the world. So he says, tachlis inyan Torah mitzvahs b'am shachas gilu d'tzeni lamato. This purpose of Torah mitzvahs. What is the purpose of Torah mitzvahs? So the pasuk says, "Vayitzavenu Hashem la'asis es kol hachukim ha'ela." The pasuk says, Hashem commanded us to do all these mitzvahs. Why? Liyira es Hashem. To fear Hashem. That's what the pasuk says. The purpose of Torah and mitzvahs is to fear Hashem. It says, and we say this positive, it's a positive, we say it in benching. Yiras Hashem Kadesha. Yeah, who should fear Hashem? The holy ones. It says another pasuk, Yirmei Hashem Kol Haaretz, everybody. So the answer is, Achinyin Knedam Asher Kasu B'Makom Acham pasuk. Kilei Machshvei Sei Machshvei Seichem. The pasuk says in Yeshaya, my thoughts are not like your thoughts. Shalafon of Yisbarich. Kol Mashalamayla. Anything that is up there is called Yesh. Legabi Shalamata Himenu. Mashenki Mimata Lamayla. Kol Mashalamata Humosik. When there is called Yesh. In other words, there's Hashem's approach, Hashem's look, seeing it. It's Hashem's perspective and our perspective. From Hashem's perspective, Lamaila is Yesh, and Lamata is Ayin. From our perspective, Lamata Yesh, or Lamaila Ayin. Right? So this is the different perspective between us and Hashem. So he says, what is the purpose of Torah mitzvahs? Like we learned many times. Hashem made yesh mi'ayin. Our avoid is to make the yesh back into ayin, meaning that he says, the just of Hashem's approach, Hashem's perspective. The world is yesh, ayin miyesh. So we should make the same thing that the world is ayin miyesh, eined muvadim. Just like from Hashem's perspective. Everything is bottled. Nothing exists but Hashem. Just like by Hashem everything is nothing. The same thing from our approach, our perspective. It should be that what? Only Hashem exists. That Hashem exists in the cave and in the passages on the ground. That's the should be bottled. And he says, that's the hefesh between what's the Miyiro me Hashem kol haaretz, because he just has a contradiction. One pasuk says, Yiro as Hashem kadeshav, the Holy Ones fear Hashem, and another pasuk says, Yom Hashem kol haaretz, the whole world is fearful of Hashem. So he says, Yiro as Hashem kol haaretz, that's Yiro Tata, that from our impression is Mata Yesh, and therefore we have to make Yesh into Ayin. But Yiro as Hashem Anushia Bechinis Es Hatafel Hainu Bitul Mamish. Yiro Es Hashem, Es means, it could have said Yiro Hashem. Es always in Chumash adds. But it's secondary to the what it's Es to. Like for instance, Bereshit bara Elokim es hashemayim v'haaretz. It could have said Bereshit bara Elokim hashemayim v'haaretz. So Gemara learns out es hashemayim means everything in the heaven. Esa, but it's secondary to the shemayim. When it says kabed es avicha v'esimecha, could have said kabed avicha v'imecha. So Gemara learns out older brother, older sister, whatever, outlaws, in-laws. So es is something which includes. In fact, the Gemara says, the one that was learning it, when he came to the pasuk, Es Hashem alakecha tira, he said, what can you add over there? So he said, the Rabbi is Talmidei Chachamim. It includes scholars. Because they learn Torah, they're connected to Hashem. You have to not only fear Hashem, but Es Hashem alakecha tira includes Talmidei Chachamim. It's always Es. So it says, Yiro me Hashem, it says, Yiro Hashem, kol haaretz. Yiru es Hashem means not only Hashem himself, but Yirat Tata is to realize that everything that exists in the world is Einay Mulvad. That's the right of the Jew. Avol Bechinis Yira Ilah, which is Al Yira Esek HaTeira Mein Choch Mein Yira, like he explained. So then that level of Elokus brings down, that level of Yira brings Elokus down, Mumayla Lamata. So one pasuk is speaking Mumata Lamaila, and one pasuk is speaking Mumayla Lamata. And they're both right. Just like it says, Kel Deis Hashem. Hashem has Deis plural, which means Mumayla, there's Lamaila Ayin, Yesh and Lamata Ayin. Yeah, Yesh Mi Ayin. And then there's a second level, Ayin Mi Yesh. So these are the two from Hashem's perspective. There's Hashem's perspective, Einay Mulvadoi, and from our perspective is Bittul Yesh to Hashem. No, nothing else.